Welcome to the Somehow Together podcast, where we explore faith, connection, and everything that holds us together. I'm Miranda.
And I'm Erica.
You know, life is messy,
Relationships are messy,
but we weren't meant to do life alone.
and God is still at work in the middle of it all.
So we're still showing up
Somehow together.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for our very first episode of Somehow Together. I am one of the hosts here, and my name is Miranda, and I am so glad that you are joining us. With me today is the other co-host, my amazing friend, Erica. And before we jump into the first episode of this awesome season, we wanted to spend a little bit of time introducing ourselves so that you could get to know the voices behind the microphones. So, without further ado, I want to introduce you to Erica, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about herself.
Thanks, Miranda. Well, my name is Erica Matters, and I, along with Miranda, currently live in Washington State. Miranda's getting ready to relocate soon, and so this will be a distance podcast, but we're excited that we'll be able to stay connected even while she's living in a different state. But I am a pastor's wife, and I have been for about 26 years now, which sounds like a very long time, and it really has been. And I just want to put a disclaimer out there that a lot of pastors' wives are put into a certain category or box, but all pastors' wives are very, very different. And I am one of those pastors' wives who loves the local church, who's committed and passionate about ministry and personal growth and spiritual growth. And so I'm excited to be involved with this podcast and to be able to share some of the things I've been learning over the years with you. I'm also a mental health counselor. And so all things mental health, I love it. And then in more important times of my life, I am a mother of 2 kids. I have a daughter who's in college and a son who's in high school. And that's one of my biggest joys in life. And of course, I've been friends with Miranda for like 9 years now, and that's also very important to me. So, Miranda, why don't you share a little bit about you too so that they can get to know you?
Yes. Thank you. I just have to say, as Erica was introducing herself, when she said she's not the typical pastor's wife, it made me chuckle a little bit because I actually still remember the first time that we really hung out after my husband and my family and I moved here, and you invited me out to lunch. And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, what an amazing personality she has. And I think that I could force myself to be friends with her, or rather force her to be friends with me. So I'm so excited that years later, we actually are still friends together. And this is an adventure that we are going on. And so anyway, so yes, my name is Miranda. Miranda Plyler is my last name. And I have a husband and two teenage boys. Nate is my husband. He is not a pastor. I am not a pastor's wife. However, I do work in ministry at our local church as an ordained elder in the Church of the Nazarene. And so I get to kind of be on the other side of ministry from Erica, but it has still been an honor and a privilege to be able to serve alongside her and the other leaders that we have here at the church. My husband, Nate, he loves worship. So he is one of our worship leaders. And my oldest is just getting ready to graduate this summer. So we are embarking on the very early stages of what it looks like to have our teens leave the house. So I am sure we will flood some of these episodes with some of our personal stories because so much of life is lived personally, and we get to share those pieces with you. In addition to being a wife and a mom and a pastor, I'm also a trauma chaplain. And so a lot of my heart behind walking alongside people in the local church is to help bring some trauma-informed perspectives into what does it look like to live just faithfully with the Lord through some really hard and challenging times, but also what does it look like for us to provide support for each other, even if maybe you don't know Jesus. And so, yeah, I guess that's kind of where my heart is. And as Erica and I have talked, we just wanted to do something a little wild and crazy. So here we are.
Here we are. Also, as part of your job, you train others to also have that informed perspective. And so I think it's exciting that this podcast might be a way that we can um, help others to see things differently. Maybe use faith as a resource to help people, but also know how to sit with people in their pain and
Yes.
their struggles, and not always give an easy answer
Yeah.
that sometimes the church is known to have provided in the past.
Yeah.
So,
That is so good. I think so many people have such good hearts and they want to be able to walk alongside and come alongside people. And yet they just have never really learned how to do that
mhm,
well. I mean, I didn't. I
mhm.
thought I was doing a lot of good. And then in some of my learning and just equipping for myself, I realized that there are some things that I probably did that were more hurtful
Mhm.
than helpful. So
Yeah.
we're all learning.
Learning's good.
Yes. Yes. All right. So now we get to the fun stuff. Why a podcast? There are so many podcasts out there. And so why a podcast? And so this is something that, Eric and I we've kind of joked about doing over the years, but really something I'd say probably in the last 2 years really started shifting for us. So Erica, tell us a little bit about how we got started. What is it that kind of brought us here in this room together? Like how did we get here?
Well, I think you hit on it. Like, Miranda and I had a lot of conversations over a long period of years about how God might want to use us. Being women in ministry, or women who have a passion for Jesus, and involved in ministry, we were trying to find our place and trying to find
Mhm.
our role. And so we've been praying and talking about it a lot over the
Mhm.
years. And as I transitioned back into the workplace as a mental health counselor, I was praying even more about how can God use my gifts, and how can God use us
Mhm.
to continue to have influence and help teach and guide people
Yeah.
in the area of faith and community and mental health.
Mhm.
And so the podcast idea came up, and we laughed about it at first, and then
We
we
laughed a lot about it.
prayed, and then
We
we both
probably laughed some more.
and then we both were trying to read whether the other person was actually serious about the idea. And finally, we put it on the schedule and started planning some of the details that are required to pull off a podcast. And so it's kind of how it started. I have a passion for podcasts because it's my favorite medium for learning. I like that I can listen and do other things. I can listen to it in the car. And there's been times in my life where I've felt kind of alone in ministry, and
Mhm.
sometimes I feel
Mhm.
pastored even by some of those podcast leaders.
Mhm.
You get to know them
Mhm.
you feel like you know them personally,
Yeah.
and they bring in sometimes really great speakers and people that have
Mhm.
a lot of things that can. They say a lot of wise things that can help you along your faith journey, and
Yeah.
so I've just had a passion for podcasts that way. I also love chatting with Miranda, and we just have a lot of fun when we're together. And so this idea of sitting across from each other, or even across through a screen together and chatting, it just sounds fun. And so we both love to talk about God, and we like
Yep.
to talk about how we're growing in our faith.
Yep.
We like talking about mental health, and
Mhm.
how we can best make sure that we're the healthiest people, moms,
Mhm.
leaders we can be. And we also like to laugh a lot.
Like a
So,
lot.
yeah.
I remember, Erica, I remember for me, when I think about how how we got here, I did say we laughed a lot because we did.
Hmm.
I think that for both of us, it was something that we both desired to do. And you hit it on the head perfectly when you said, but we tried to figure out if the other person was actually serious because there was a lot of laughter involved. For me, I think it was sitting at the She Speaks conference
Okay.
last summer when we both went there. An amazing conference put on by Proverbs 31, great ministry. And I think that was the first time when the idea of doing a podcast started to feel like it could become maybe a reality. And even then it took us a few more months to get there. But here we are.
Hmm.
And we're just so excited to be able to share our hearts and how God is moving and truly help people like you, our listeners, learn and explore what it means to truly live a holistically full life. Because I do think that that is life that Jesus wants for us. And so that's how we got here. And then, oh my Lanta, there was so much that came with the planning parts that we were not really prepared for. But the biggest piece was picking a name because there is power in a name. And we didn't name the podcast somehow together by accident. And so how how did we name our podcast, Erica? And what was the motivation really behind it?
Well, we felt like we wanted a name that indicated a few different things, the different aspects of kind of our mission. And one of the things that we think is important is connection. And
Yeah.
so we were trying to find a way to make sure we incorporate connection into our
Mhm.
name. And God has had me on this journey of trying to get personal with people.
Mm.
And so I feel like it just fits my faith journey right now really well. This idea of getting personal um, with even just a few small, like a few people in my circle. And but it's hard because there's not very many
Mhm.
people who've invested me in that way. And
Mhm.
so I've been trying to find tools and ideas that I can implement in this getting personal journey. And
Mhm.
so as I have been learning, I would like to share what I've been learning with people, and so
Yeah.
that idea of together
Yep.
a ties that personal part in. We also wanted this like a faith component. I think
Mhm.
um, being in the church for almost 40 plus years, you start to realize that the church is the most unlikely group of people. Right? We
Yeah.
have people who are all ages, from zero to
Yeah.
in their 90s. We
Mhm.
have people who are on all different ends of the political spectrum. We have
Mhm.
people who are introverts and extroverts. We have people that are funny and serious. And it's just this big group of people that is
Mhm.
very unlikely. And so somehow we've been put together on this journey in this race to finish strong. And
Mhm.
so we need to encourage each other and help each other. And somehow there's no expert strategies on making that happen, but we figured
Yeah.
like somehow that happens. And we do know that the somehow is actually by God's strength
Yeah.
and the Holy Spirit. But we wanted the title to kind of indicate that we are experts. We don't have it figured out. Nobody has it
Oh
figured
man,
out.
no.
And so somehow we're together. We're somehow put together, but we're also somehow going to make it together to this goal
Yeah.
that God set before us.
Yeah, and there's so many differences. I mean, I think even between you and I and our friendship, there's so many things that we enjoy together, but we also have so many differences as well, and yet we are still somehow together as friends. When I when I was thinking about the component of the togetherness, because I think that's so important, is that piece for connection. And I think about how if you go back early on, very, very early in the Bible, it starts in Genesis. And as God creates the world and everything he creates, he says it is good. Light is good, the creatures are good, the plants are good, everything is good. And then he creates mankind and he looks at Adam and he says, this is very good. There's only one place in the creation story where God says this is not good. And it is when he looks at Adam and he said, it is not good for this man to be alone. And oftentimes we look at that as between spouses, but I think it goes so much deeper than that. There's such a huge relational component to in the intentionality when God created men and women to be together in community. And it's not surprising because you look at the Trinity and the relationship even in the fullness of who God is. And so that together piece for me is just so important
Mhm.
and so key. And then the somehow is all the mess that comes with it,
Yeah.
right? The differences, the just the messy life that we live both inside the church and outside the church. And somehow by God's grace, we are able to journey this life together. And so it definitely was an intentional name. And we really just want to encourage people to find and be in community, whatever that looks like. And so that's going to be kind of a focus that we keep coming back to is what does community look like, and how do we find that somehow together as we live out this life that we've been called to live. And it's hard.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for that reminder of how it's God wired us this way. We are created in his image to be in community. And so when we don't have that, we feel it. We know that there's something lacking in our lives, and I hear it a lot. I hear a lot in my counseling room. I hear it a lot from people in churches and in my small groups that they feel alone. They feel like they don't have connections. They feel like they're always the one putting in the effort. And I just think it's just an important reminder for people to realize that they're not alone in this journey, that we are all struggling with it. It's a common humanity issue. And then God speaks to it. They're wired for this community.
We are literally neurobiologically wired to have a deep sense of belonging with each other. We were wired for community. We were literally never meant to be alone. And yet we live in this time that seems so connected with cell phones and technology and podcasts, right? Like, but the ability to connect with each other is unending. And yet there are higher levels of loneliness reported now than ever before. It's incredible to me. It's crazy. And so we just really want to be part of the solution, I think. And I say that as I know that we're sitting like behind microphones on a podcast asking you to listen to it. But I think that's just part of life. We're gonna listen and we're gonna consume, but then we also have a responsibility to go and do different too. So,
and at a minimum, you and I are gonna feel together.
Oh, absolutely.
Somehow together, even
yes.
Wherever this podcast goes, however God uses it,
absolutely,
it'll be a journey for us to grow and to be together. So we can't lose.
No, win-win for us.
Yes.
So I know I think, Erica, we have definitely touched on this already, but I want to ask it just really clearly. As we've been talking and planning and dreaming about the podcast, what do you hope people get from listening and being with us? Like at a deep level, like what is that you hope for in this?
I have a few ideas on how to answer that question. Well, I feel like as we personally learn how to be, get more personal in our connections and our relationships, and we share our journey, we hope that others will be inspired to be vulnerable and to try to deepen their connections as well.
For sure.
I've always struggled with this, like this idea that I want to have some kind of influence, but I feel like God has put that in my heart, this passion to impact others, impact the world around me. And so I hope that by sharing and being vulnerable and even sharing resources that I've come across, that we can help impact people to try to reach out to others and deepen their connections. I really feel like the only way, at least the best way for us to be able to disciple each other, is going to be through personal connection.
Yes.
I think too often, for too long, we've relied on programming in our churches to disciple people. But what I've learned in my years of ministry is that only goes so far. The church can only do so much. And the best ways we learn is through those personal connections where people can speak into our lives. They can hold us accountable. They know what's going on, and they can point us towards Scripture. They can point us towards God and what God would have for our lives. And so we can only do so much through the church. And so I guess as a personal, somebody who believes really strongly in personal connection, I feel like the best way to disciple. Also, Jesus did it that way. So I'm kind of like, Jesus he invested in people, and he got personal with people, and then he was able to disciple his disciples. So I feel like that's just kind of a goal. And then I hope somehow together we can share our podcast with friends and the passion that we've shared together in
Mhm.
growing in our faith, the area of mental health and relationships,
Mhm.
just that passion that we have. So,
Mhm.
how about you? What are you hoping?
Yeah, I actually just heard recently this phrase social wellness.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, "Ooh, I really like that," because I think so often we focus on these pockets of our life, physical wellness, mental wellness, spiritual wellness,
Hmm.
and emotional wellness, and all of those things are super important. But I think sometimes we forget about the social piece that that
Oh, yeah.
that thing that connects us all
Hmm.
together, right? And so, um, I think that I want people to be inspired to figure out what does social wellness look like for them. How do we take those brave steps into community and allow the Lord to foster those relationships with other people because it
Hmm.
is really, really, really hard. As you were talking to, and you were talking about being encouraged by other people and helping point, like being invested in the lives of people to help point them to Jesus and also allow them to point you to Jesus when you're struggling. It reminded me of the story in Mark when the paralyzed man's friends brought him to Jesus,
Yeah.
like literally dug into a rooftop to lower him down to Jesus because they could not get through the crowds. Like, could you even imagine being Jesus and he's speaking and the roof literally starts falling in, and then there's this guy that's just lowered down to you. But that's the type of connection that I want for myself, and
Hmm.
I want other people to find it is not just to be a friend who is the carrier to
Hmm.
Jesus. Like I think we can
Hmm.
all kind of do that sometimes,
Uh-huh.
but sometimes we don't allow ourselves to be carried
Sure.
to Jesus. And
Hmm.
so I want people to open up and be vulnerable
Hmm.
enough to have those deeper connections to where you will be carried
Hmm.
to Jesus when you need it too, because sometimes our lives are going to go really, really well. And we get to be the ones who carry others. And sometimes our lives are not going as well as we had hoped them to be. And we will need to be carried. And so being vulnerable enough and having the people in your life who can look at you and be like, ooh, I think I need to carry her to the Lord, and be willing to step into that place and do it
I
would be
remember
really cool.
hearing, I don't remember if it was a book or a podcast or where I got this information from, but somebody was talking about how if you want to be able to help your friends when they have needs, you have to be willing to ask for help when you have
Yes.
needs,
Yep.
because it's like giving them permission to ask for
Yep.
help. And so often we hear people say, of course I want to help my friends. Of course I want
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
jump in there and meet their needs in this moment or whatever,
Mhm.
but we're not very good at asking for help when we need it. And so that idea of like being willing to ask for help when we need it is really giving your friends permission then to ask you for help when they
Yeah.
need it. And so
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's like, how can we allow ourselves to be carried
Mhm.
sometimes,
Mhm.
so that we are then privileged to be able to help carry someone else down the road. So
Yeah.
yes, I love that.
I love that too. I love that, that is so much that it shows the reciprocal nature of relationships and
Hmm.
connection, and I think inadvertently, sometimes we put these I mean, in my life, I call them, like, micro walls up,
Hmm.
where you can kinda look over it, but you might have a hard time climbing over it, and so I have had to learn over years to start breaking down those micro walls and allow people in a more authentic way because I will do anything. I mean, not anything. I will do a lot of things
Almost
for
anything.
almost anything for people, right? Because we're helpers by nature,
Hmm.
and yet so many times I found myself on the other side suffering alone
Hmm.
because I wouldn't allow people in
Hmm.
because I would put those micro walls up, and so much of relationship is reciprocated. Eventually people will stop asking you for help if you never reciprocate
Hmm.
and open yourself up in that way to other people. And I think that is the same way with a lot of different things, not just when it comes to help, but just connection
Hmm.
in general.
Hmm.
And so we have to learn how to reciprocate in relationship and not just be one-sided in it. And that is for the givers and the receivers on
Hmm.
both sides. It
Hmm.
is easy to land on one side of those and just kind of stay there. And we
Hmm.
have to remind ourselves that we have to jump across that line sometimes to be the friend that we're supposed to be
Hmm.
and to find those connections that we're longing for.
Yeah,
So,
agreed.
yeah. All right, Erica, I know, and this is probably I think as I was thinking of just some of the questions that we were going to talk through today, I love hearing you talk about how you've learned about community and connection. And I know that you are a podcast person. I know that you love listening to podcasts. You love anyway, all those things. I tend to be more of a book reader, and so this is definitely a new arena for me. But what is one of or two of some of your favorite people that you've been learning from when it comes to community and connection?
All right. Well, at first when you sent me the questions, it said one, and I was like, one? I have to limit myself to one? Okay.
No, you can give
Okay.
more than
Okay.
one.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, right now, I would say my favorite person to listen to is Liz Bohannon. She has a podcast
She's
called
so good.
Plucking Up. And she's fun to watch on social media. Anyway, she's
Yeah.
just kind of a fun personality.
Yeah.
But she also currently on her podcast is doing a series on how to build community. And she's very specific and strategic and gives you real tips that you can actually take and try to apply to your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always liked her, but I've really loved this current series that she's doing right now. Another person I've always loved, and anybody who knows me knows I love, is Annie F. Downs on the That Sounds Fun
Yes.
podcast. She talks a lot about personality types with the Enneagram, and
Yeah.
I like that. But I really like this idea that she has right now of a board of directors for your life. And so it means like having different types of experts or friends that are, using varying gifts to speak into your life.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who might be able to help you with your finances, somebody who's helping you with your marriage, somebody who's helping you with your mental health, spiritual coaches, different people. So she talks about like, how do you have a lot of different players in your life, people in your life who are helping you to live the most well-rounded life that you can. And just, so you're just continually learning to be your best self. Jenny Allen also has a good book on community.
Yes. Yeah,
I
she
like
does.
Jess Connolly. There's a lot
Yes.
of people out there, but those are just a few of my favorite. So who are some of your favorites?
You can tell we're friends because we follow the same people. Right. And I don't, Liz Bohannon and Annie F. Downs, I don't follow them as much through podcasts and social media and stuff like that. But I think I've read everything that Annie's ever produced, even her Bible studies, 100 Days to Brave. Oh my goodness, that hit right. I ran a group through that study, I think right before COVID hit, and it was just so good. Less to do with community, more to do with yourself, but but still so good. And I love Jenny Allen and Jess Conley. I follow them quite closely and often. I'm curious though, when you were talking about Liz Bohannon, you mentioned that she gives like super practical tips, and I've never heard community building put in a way of systems and processes. And so I can tend to be a systems and process person. So you said that, and I'm super curious for all of our like maybe a little bit more systems oriented versus I guess just systems oriented people. What are some of the specific things that and you don't have to run through her entire system. You can check out Liz Bohannon's podcast if you guys want to learn that. But what are a couple things that she has said that has stuck out to you?
Well, a couple of my takeaways that I've, from her is just one of the ways is like to have a standing meeting with your people.
Ooh, yes, I love that.
On the calendar, because what happens often is we just go, we'll get together. Let's try to get together.
Yes.
But
and then like 6 months go by and you never have that coffee with that person.
Yes. And we look at our schedules though, and it's really hard to have to find time in our schedule to get together. And so if you always have a standing meeting, like the third Wednesday, or it can be every week, it could be every other week, but a standing meeting with your people that you are trying to build that personal connection with, then there's never a question about whether they're available. Everybody has it blocked off on their calendar. Everybody else is prioritizing that time together. Sometimes things happen, but like just that standing meeting. And so like in my personal relationship, since I've heard that, I've been trying to make sure I schedule the next meeting with my friends. And so
I am her friend. I can attest that she actually does this very, very well. And she has been an inspiration to me to do the same.
Good. Yes. And so that's one tip. The other part I really love about her, and I can't remember exactly what word she uses, but she um, talks about going into relationships with where knowing that there's going to be conflict sometimes, there's going to be
Yes.
disappointment sometimes,
Mhm.
but that those
Mhm.
relationships need repair. And we need to like
Mhm.
strive for repairing them instead of walking away from them.
Yeah.
And as somebody who's been in the church and seen people walk away from lots of
Mhm.
relationships
Mhm.
and to not do the work of like repair,
Mhm.
um, that I've been passionate about that because
Yeah.
that walking away process is very painful for those left
Mhm.
behind.
Mhm.
And so I just think we have to know that disappointment's going to happen.
Yeah.
We have to know that conflict and butting of heads is going to happen.
Mhm.
Relationships are not easy.
Yep.
We're just all so different
Yep.
somehow, right? Somehow
Somehow.
together, but we have to be willing to like do that hard work of repairing relationships. And so I love her wisdom and her the way she talks around the
Mhm.
idea of repairing relationships.
Mhm.
And so,
Man, that's so good. That's so
mhm,
good. Yeah, you're right, 'cause it's so much easier just to walk away when things
mhm,
are hard and maybe start over somewhere new than it is to, like, stay stuck. Not
mhm,
not stuck in a bad way, but, like, stick it
yeah,
out where you are at
mhm,
and hopefully find resolution and repair to things. And sometimes that repair doesn't look the way that we
mhm,
hope for it to, but at least at that point, if you still choose to go, you can go maybe not as hurting
mhm,
as you
yeah,
were before, but, um, yeah, that's really good. I like that.
mhm.
I'll have to check that part out. For
It's good. It's good stuff.
it is good. And in
Mhm,
in all of this, like, we recognize that so much of this is relational heavy because that is what connection is, and that is what togetherness is. And like you said, somehow we're doing it, and yet there's this component of relationship that
mhm,
has to exist. And so I think sometimes we just assume that you go from stranger to friend so quickly, and it's so not like that.
no.
But when we were kids, it was. Do you remember how easy it was
Mhm,
to like make friends as
mhm,
kids? You'd like walk on the playground and right, you're what, kindergarten, first grade, and you look at somebody and you're like, oh my goodness, your shoes are so cute. And then bam, you're like best friends from kindergarten to graduation and beyond over shoes. Like
uh-huh,
that's how easy it was when we were young. And now something something changes and now we have to be so intentional with what does friendships and relationships look like and carving out the time for that. And it
mhm,
is hard because life is so full and so busy, and I love what you said about just having those standing appointments on your calendar. I think of when I put something on my calendar, and this is just for me that I do, I think of it as if that is not movable. Like
mhm,
once it lands, if it's theoretical and it's like, yeah, I'm going to try for this, I don't put it on my calendar.
mhm,
Maybe on my to do list that may or may not get done. But if it is something on my calendar, for me, that is just the same as if I were to have a doctor's appointment
mhm.
or some type of an appointment that I have with some super powerful person
Yeah,
that you would never move it for, right? And so pending like a true emergency, or
mhm,
usually that's my kids needing something, or I mean,
mhm,
or my husband, but that like
mhm.
emergencies with your spouse don't come up all that
Yeah,
often. I just don't usually push those personal appointments anymore because of the value that it
mhm.
provides. So
It communicates that they're important,
yeah.
and if you're always backing out or changing the appointment, they are gonna feel like they're not important, and
Mhm.
then they're gonna feel that disappointment, and then they're gonna not know whether they can trust the connection, and so, yep,
Mhm.
showing up is just huge.
Mhm. And I think of too, like from a trauma perspective. Okay, I'll try not to get too soapboxy here, but like we've all been through things in our life, and so any like change is actually really hard for
Mhm,
most people, even if it's little bits of change.
mhm,
And so when we don't take the time to communicate, you are important to me by keeping that appointment, we're inadvertently revalidating their lack of worthiness that so many people already feel like, oh, well, I'm just not important enough for them to hang out with me. And we're reinforcing those underlying ideas that they've been building over their entire lives.
mhm,
And so instead of repairing some of that relational damage by being intentional in relationship with them, we're actually causing more relational hurt. Um, and you don't really think about that when you cancel a coffee date with a friend. And yet if you do that over and over and over again, it does start to communicate something different
Mhm.
to that person.
Yeah. Even if it's unintentional.
For sure.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's still.
Yeah. And things come up, right?
Mhm.
Life is hard, and it is long, and it's kind of messy. And
Mhm.
so, but I think being intentional with even the way you communicate
Mhm.
with your friends is important. Okay, so then as we think about like friendships and relationships, the other question that comes to mind is, and I know we could actually probably spend a whole episode on this, so we're not going to go super deep right now because I do actually think that this would be something really good to talk about more in depth. But what makes somebody a good friend? Like, what makes somebody a good friend?
Mhm.
I think you even more than me, although I think we see people come in with similar questions and concerns into our offices,
Mhm.
and yet they're coming at it from like really different perspectives. And so I think you have kind of a unique perspective on relationships and friendships from, especially from your mental health standpoint. And so as you're navigating relationships with people, how do you help them recognize who's a good friend? What makes a good friend?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I learned from a book once was just that we need lots of different types of friends, right? Sometimes we need spiritual guides. Sometimes we
Mhm.
need funny friends.
Mhm.
Sometimes we need dependable people that are going to show up and like bring us a meal when we're sick. We
Mhm.
just need friends who challenge us to grow.
Mhm.
And so I think too often we have this idea that we need a friend that we get
Mhm.
along with 100% of the time, that they were just exactly like,
Yeah.
that they hold the same values as us, that have
Mhm.
the same personality type as us. And let me tell you, your life will be very
They
bland and
dress the
boring.
same as
Yeah,
you.
dress. Yeah, we're currently dressed like twins today.
We totally are.
But
Totally by accident.
yeah, and so I read it in book. I think it was a pastor's wife actually. That it was Rick Warren's wife. I
Mm.
think her name's, I don't remember her first name. Sorry, but it's Rick Warren's wife. She wrote a book, and I just remember her talking about different kinds of friends, pulling in lots of different friends in your life. And I'm like, so when I think of a good friend, the word "good" can hold so much different meaning, right? And because different people are going to contribute different things into your life and help fill you up in different ways.
Mhm. Mhm.
One thing though, that when I think about like what have I felt like I have missed been missing, or that I wish I had,
Mhm.
was a friend that just shows up when we need to be seen or need help. Like
Mm. Mhm.
um often we feel like we're on this journey and we have to do the hard work of asking for help, or we have to be the
Yeah.
one that's always
Yeah.
taken the initiative, right?
Yep.
Which, I mean, really, that's how we get what we want in life, is to do those things. But
Mhm.
a good friend is one of those people that maybe sees that you're struggling and asks you about it, or sees that
Mhm.
you need something and just goes and gets it,
Yeah.
and takes care of those
Yeah.
needs. And so
Yeah.
um, we all want more of those kind of people in your life. That's kind of
Mhm.
that underlying
Kinda need
need that we
almost.
all
Yeah.
we all kind
Desire.
of have. And I don't know if
Yeah.
we like to admit it out loud, but we all
I
kind of
know.
do need that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes me think of actually, so going back to the story in Mark about the paralyzed man. The interesting thing in that story is we actually never hear from the paralyzed man. So we
Oh
don't
yeah.
actually know if
Mhm.
he asked his friends to get him to Jesus, or if they just saw that he needed healing and they believed enough that if they got him there, he would get it. And so we don't actually know. We don't know if he asked for that help or if they just saw that need and was like, "You know what, buddy? We're taking you. We're going to take you to Jesus, and he's going to meet you there." And so I love that you mentioned that, as just
Mhm.
being aware
Mhm.
of what other people are going through and what they might need. And that is so hard in our busyness of our everyday life. And I think that in order to see other people, we actually have to create the space to see them, because
Mhm.
we can get so busy and so bogged
True.
down with everything that we are doing that it becomes actually really challenging. I mean, all I can see are my needs
Mhm.
sometimes, right? I'm like, why isn't somebody showing up to help me? And so it's even harder then to see the needs of a friend,
Sure.
because we're already so busy. And so we have to create margin and space in our lives for that, for that to happen. I also think of, a good friend um, is a friend who doesn't need details, that they
I
just
love that.
like, I, yeah, that you I like to think that I'm the type of friend, Erica, that if you were struggling with something, and let's say you can't even express what that is, but if you just reach out and you're like, Miranda, I just need help, or I need you to pray for me right now. I don't have to sit there and farm for information from you. I don't have to be like, oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. But tell me what's happening. Right. Like
Mhm.
it can be as easy as absolutely, yes, I'm coming over right now, or I'm praying for you right now. Like we don't have to know the details of what is going on. You'll share those when you're ready. Um, but I think that's what makes a good friend too, is somebody who's willing to just meet you there without needing a lot of understanding of why they're going
Mhm.
in the first place. Like I don't need to justify that I'm gonna drop everything to go be with a friend in need. I'm just gonna go do it.
Yeah. I don't know that many of us know how to be that friend very often,
Yeah.
or that we're very good at it yet,
Yeah.
but somehow together
Yes.
on this journey, we hope that we
Yes.
can learn and we can start practicing, and it takes practice, and
Totally.
that's okay. And just to
Mhm.
see that it's a area of growth for all of us, or room we have
Mhm.
room for growth.
Mhm. And then when we're with our friends, right, we do actually like to have fun together. Like,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
support and this is
yeah.
being with them, and that is so important because, again, we're gonna go through seasons of highs and lows in our life, and so we need the support people in our life too. But so much of connection has to do with shared interests to
Mhm,
some degree.
mhm,
And what are some of the things, or maybe one of the key things that you look for in a friend beyond like character capacity, but when
mhm.
you're, I mean, I don't want to say interviewing for friendships because that sounds weird, but it's not so easy
We
as I
do.
like your shirt anymore. So
That's true, we do kind of pick them,
we
right?
kind of like date
Yeah,
our
we
friends
do.
a little, see if we're going to be compatible
Yeah, we do.
for that friendship. So what are some of the things that you look for when you are
Mhm,
kind of just starting out that connection or relationship with somebody, and you are like evaluating and kind of asking yourself, like, could I see myself in a friendship
mhm,
relationship with
mhm,
this person? Is this going to be someone that I'm going to invite kind of into that inner circle of my life?
mhm. So I had 2 ideas when I saw that question, and I'm like, okay, the first one is a common passion and love for Jesus.
Mm,
I,
mhm.
sometimes can be intense when it comes to this passion that I have for growing in my love for Jesus, and bringing people along on that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so if you can't handle that intensity, that passion, we're probably not gonna be the best of friends. But if you are striving to get better um, in your walk journey with Jesus, and
Mhm.
it really is a journey. Nobody's great at it, but if you're not trying very hard, it's probably gonna be hard for us to be best friends.
Mhm.
Not saying that we can't be somewhat friends,
Sure.
work friends or
Sure.
acquaintances and stuff, but
Yeah.
I like to pursue Jesus with my whole heart, and
Yeah.
so I hope that my friends would also feel the same. The second thing is I like to laugh,
Yes, I was hoping you would say that one.
and so I love going to comedy shows. I like to laugh really loud. I like to share funny videos. I like to do all that. And so if somebody's going to hang with me, they're going to probably have to be willing to laugh and to get jokes,
Yes.
and maybe have a similar sense of humor with me. But
Yeah.
yeah. So how about you?
I love
What are some of those
I love that so much. I was so
common?
hoping that you would say the laughter one. I was like, if she does not say that, I'm calling her out
Yeah.
because laughter is so much fun. Yeah, I love I think for me in a friend, definitely we're gonna have to enjoy life.
Mhm.
It is far too short to be super serious all the time. And in ministry and chaplaincy work and as a pastor and counselor, even like we see a lot of serious
Mhm.
things. And so like I do want the space to be able to kind of let my hair down a little bit, if you will. That's
Yeah.
kind of an old saying, I
Yeah.
think, but to let my hair down a little bit and just enjoy life
Mhm.
without really having, I don't wanna say filter myself, because I'm not talking about, like, filtering
Sure. No.
inappropriate things,
Uh-huh.
but just, like, without having to think so hard
Mhm.
about what I'm gonna say or what I'm gonna do and just kinda fully be
Mhm.
myself.
Or if you're in the mood to be quiet, it's okay that you're quiet,
Yeah.
or if you're in the mood to
Yes,
be
yes.
goofy, that you can be goofy. Yeah,
Yeah,
just be yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and have somebody who's gonna meet me in that space and
Mhm.
understand when I
Mhm.
need to shift out of that, but definitely enjoying life is a
Mhm.
huge part of it. I'm a huge well, I don't know that I'm a foodie because I'm not picky about food, but I love like trying new places. So for me, it's not uncommon to invite people out to restaurants or to try something. I wouldn't even say new because I'm really not that adventurous. I'm making myself sound super awesome right now. I'm really not, but I do have my favorites. And so
Yeah.
I want to share my favorite things with people. And so I really do love, I love doing that. And then I do love being able to talk. Like you said, I want somebody who's going to be like, I'm intense. I read a lot of things and I'm passionate about a lot of things, Jesus being one of them. And so I do want somebody who's going to be able to not match me in it necessarily, but at least meet me in it and maybe ask questions about the things that I'm learning or experiencing or be willing to put up with my monologues when I'm teaching them about something that I've learned or know. And uh, yeah, I think just again, that space to be wholly who we are
Mhm.
without having to worry about the parameters from like ministry and walking with people in a more intentional way where we can just kind of be ourselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes
And it's
sense.
not that we're not vulnerable with people, right?
Sure.
Like and authentic and truly who we are. But I do think again those micro walls pop up when we are in more of our ministry settings, whether
Mhm.
that's inside the church or in your office with clients. Like
Mhm.
there are boundaries that exist in those types of relationships. And
Mhm.
so I'm having a space that's not boundaryless, but kind of
Sure.
almost
Yeah. Gotcha.
is super important.
Mhm.
But
For sure.
yeah, and I think for you guys as listeners, it's important for you to know what is important to you, so that as you are dating friends,
Mhm.
you can recognize and be like, oh, I do actually really, I really love this about this person, and I actually want more of that. And so you'll start to when you're practicing awareness, you will start to recognize the things that you are naturally drawn to and those types of personalities that you are drawn to. I remember though with my kids, and you said something earlier, Erica, about like different types of people in
Mhm.
your life. And I think that's really important too, because I think we could easily surround ourselves with the same type of friend. And I remember with my kids when they were little and they would struggle with, well, I don't want to invite everybody to this movie, especially so and so because they talk through movies. Or I want to go to the skate park, but I feel bad not inviting this friend, but they don't even like skating. And so we would have conversations where where we would talk about it's okay to have friends who have different interests in you and to invite a friend to go skating when they hate skating is actually going to make skating miserable for you and your other friends. And
Yeah.
so it's okay that you don't invite, even though they're one of your best friends, it's okay that you don't invite them to go skating
Mhm.
because it's not going to be good for them, it's not going to be good for you, it's not going to be good for the other people. Same thing with movies, right? And so it is important to know, engage, like one of my favorite restaurants is a Mexican restaurant. If my friend hates Mexican
Yeah.
food, that's not going to be the place I invite you to go to dinner
Mhm.
with me
Mhm.
because you're not going to like it.
Yeah.
And then
Or
it's going
if
to be miserable for both of us,
Yeah, or
you
if you have
know?
a serious friend, like maybe you're more challenging, like they're not,
Yeah,
maybe they're not a challenging, but they're a challenger kind of
sure.
personality,
Mhm,
maybe.
mhm.
And you've had a really long week at work. They're probably not who you want to hang out with on Friday night when you're already mentally and emotionally exhausted, right? Because you won't
Right.
have the capacity to like
Yeah.
engage with them in a conversation, but you want to
Yeah.
hang out with your friend who makes you laugh
Yeah.
in those settings. And so
Yeah.
it's definitely good to have a bunch of different types of friends.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's super important.
Yeah.
And you learn what that looks like, but you
Uh-huh.
only learn that if you
Mhm.
actually engage in and around
Mhm. And try
other
different
people.
people, right? You
Mhm,
don't stick with the one person or
mhm,
yeah.
mhm. Yeah, and I think that's also the hard part because then you're like, "Well, I'm supposed to have 12 best friends.
No, not asking you to have 12. Start
I
with
barely have time for one."
start with 1. Start with 1.
Yes, but start with 1, right?
Yeah,
Start somewhere.
yeah.
You don't have to go, like,
All
from
in.
0 to
Yeah.
100 all at the same
No.
time. It's starting
Mhm.
small
Mhm.
and investing purposefully
Mhm.
in those people.
Mhm. And in our safest relationships, we know that it's okay for our friends to have other friends, right?
Yes.
And so, like,
Yes.
I
So good.
and even, like, when we're at church and Miranda is busy doing something else, talking to someone else, investing in a relationship with someone else, I can be happy for her to have that moment and
Mhm.
to do her thing. And so, and then I don't have that need to like follow her around and try to get her attention. You know, we have to be whole people on our own so that we
Mhm.
can engage in a healthy way
Mhm.
with our friends and but support them in their journey.
For sure. All right, as we wrap up our episode today, Erica, where in your life do you need a little bit more togetherness? That wasn't on your question sheet.
Okay. Mm. I do think that well, one of my best friends is moving away to Utah.
It's
um
me.
yeah, it's Miranda. And so I guess like I'm going to have to find people to hang out with when I won't be, would have hung out with Miranda, but
Mhm.
so maybe finding some more connections
Yeah.
to invest in. I've started off slow because personal when you're trying to set up a monthly meeting or something with people, you can only do that with so many people. And so
Yeah,
like
for sure.
but I find that my time with my women friends is um just as powerful and impactful as even time alone with my husband, which don't tell him I said that. I love him, but
He's totally gonna listen.
no, but I love time with my girlfriends, and so I
Yeah,
guess I just need to keep prioritizing that, and that would be where I'd feel
yeah,
more need for togetherness. How
yeah.
about you?
Oh man, well, definitely in thinking of what does this look like being removed from all of my
Yeah, that's
togetherness.
true.
So Erica mentioned I'm moving to Utah, so we'll only get to be in the same room together for a few of these episodes before I go remote. And so it's going to look really different being in a place and having to practice this in real time with people that I don't know at all. Nate and I were joking the other night. I was like, "Do we have to become people who do things like join hobby groups? And what if we really like the hobby, but we don't like the people?" And so we just had kind of a good. Well, he was laughing, I was crying because this is something that is so near and dear to my heart, and it's
Mhm,
something that I've tried to be really intentional in, just like you have in
mhm,
growing in over the last years. And so, looking at what does togetherness look like in a completely new environment where I am coming in kind of blind and don't
mhm,
know. I have a couple people there that I know, but I'm not super connected with. And
mhm.
so, what does it look like to start to foster relationships in a brand new place? And some of you who are listening might be in that brand new space, so we get to journey that journey that
Yeah,
out
I
together.
was just thinking that it's a really great opportunity to walk with our listeners through life transition, right?
Yeah.
And you'll learn alongside them and
Yep.
maybe come up with some strategies on how they can try making new connections or
Yeah.
find new friend groups and things. So,
Yeah, it'll
mhm.
be an adventure. I think I'm gonna have to reread Jenny Allen's book, Find Your People,
Yeah,
because it's
yep.
been a while since I've read that one, and it was super good the first time, and so I think I'm gonna have to revisit that a little bit in a new place with people that I'm not already
Friends with,
connected
yep.
to. Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. So, all right, well, thank you guys so much for joining us today, and we look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If this conversation resonated with you, please share it with someone you want to help feel a little less alone. And as you go into your week, ask yourself, where in my life do I need togetherness right now? And until next time, we are somehow together.